Adaptive coping strategies as a mediator for stigma by association and mental health service utilization. Stigma possesses a history that makes it likely an individual will not seek out mental health services for psychological concerns, and this suggests that stigma may exist as a barrier to the successful treatment of different mental illnesses. So while stigma has been researched, there is a gap in the literature about stigma by association, and research has shown that stigma does not just reflect on the person with the stigmatized condition, but it also extends onto the family member. And so the question remains, does service use increase among people with mental illness when family members learn adaptive coping strategies as a mediator of stigma by association? So, research suggests that family members of people with mental illness experience discrimination in the form of blame, shame, and contamination. An example of this would be that parents are held responsible for causing their child's mental illness. And then other research suggests that stigma by association and family burden are associated with a greater psychological stress and a lower quality of life. And adaptive coping strategies may mitigate the negative outcomes of stigma by association and family burden. So, I hypothesize that adaptive coping strategies taught to family members will decrease stigma by association and increase service use among people with mental illness. In order to measure this, we will have a preliminary analysis which measures current stigma by association and current mental health service utilization as reported by the family members of a person with mental illness using the stigma by association scale and the general help-seeking questionnaire. After which point, people will be randomly assigned to one of two conditions, either the adaptive coping strategies condition, where people will learn things such as positive reframing, and the control condition, where people will learn about general mental illness. After that, 6 months later, participants will complete the post-test survey, which is the same stigma by association scale and general help-seeking questionnaire, but it will help us to measure if stigma by association decreased and service use increased. So results should indicate that at pre-test, both the adaptive coping strategies condition and the control will show an increase in stigma by association and a decrease in service use as reported by the general help-seeking questionnaire. And then at post-test, learning adaptive coping strategies will decrease pre-existing levels of stigma by association and increase service use. And then, so in the control condition, we will probably see no change from pre to post or minimal change, but not at a statistically significant level, suggesting that the adaptive coping strategies work as a mediator for stigma by association. So, in general, there is evidence to suggest that psychoeducation may decrease stigma, so this may be a limitation of our study. And then a third variable may also be responsible for any decreases in stigma by association, such as a decrease in closeness or proximity, because research suggests that when children or siblings leave home, stigma by association decreases, so it becomes more manageable. So that might suggest that the closeness and proximity are responsible for that decrease. And then a challenge will be controlling for confirmation bias. I want to make sure that I don't report data that only supports my hypothesis. And in the future, the study may inform how mental health service professionals include family members of people with mental illness in treatment. So future research should investigate how family members can be incorporated into the treatment process to decrease stigma by association, possibly by using adaptive coping strategies as a tool to mitigate stigma by association.